Well, what took me into theatre really is there are two parts of my life, one in Africa and one here. And in Africa as a child, I did a school play where we dramatized Old Mother Hubbard. And the thing was that people had some masks of animals, the various animals and so forth. And I wasn't in a mask. And I was, throughout that performance, I was just goggle-eyed at these people with the mask. And there was that sort of memory, which I know that later on then I went on and did other kind of plays, but that was the thing that really sort of first took me in. And then in my rebirth, when we migrated to Britain, it was one specific event on July the 4th, 1976, when this young boy, Gurdeep Singh Chaggar, was killed in Southall. And I wasn't in London, I was just finishing off at York. And I remember reading the headline, and it had, I burst into tears. And I think many other people had the similar kind of reaction. You know, what did this boy do that he was killed? And in a way, I suppose what I would say now is that I've been trying to make sense of those tears ever since. And it's my way of saying he lives on. That's how Tara began. Well, Hanif Kureshi got in touch with me last year and sort of in his usual way had said, you know, what do I think about the Black Album as possibly a play for the stage? And I'd read it several years ago, so I immediately reread it and then got back to him and said, absolutely, it's a stage play. And what was so fantastic about that novel, I still believe it is the only one that captures this moment that has become a real era-changing moment. 1989. On the one hand, we have the fatwa against Salman Rushdie. On the other hand, we have the collapse of the Berlin Wall. And you know, in the midst of all of that, you have Tiananmen Square, you have all that. 89 is the year when the world did begin to change. And in a way, what I found about that novel was that it was the only one which had examined how it changed. And particularly detailing how the rise of this sort of new phenomenon of a certain kind of Islamic fundamentalism. I don't think anyone had done it with that kind of clarity and honesty. But of course, Hanif being Hanif, also with that kind of mischievousness. And I felt that that was fantastically important. Let alone, of course, you know, what happened with the book itself. I think for many of us who went through that period, it was a blow from the left, really. I mean, you know, we just had no ways of coming to terms with suddenly how people had become astonishingly enraged to an extent that no one had understood, but which had also led to censorship. And it's not just the censorship of the obvious kind that is of interest to me. What's of real interest is how in ourselves we began to become censorious. The kind of hesitation when you say Muslim or Islamic or fundamentalist or race, all those kinds of hesitations began to kind of emerge. So I felt that this novel of Hanif's really has the makings of a State of the Nation play. And that's really how the journey began over a year ago. In simple terms, really, it is a story of how does an artist emerge? What do you lose? What do you have to leave behind in order to not just find your voice, but find your voice in freedom? What happens? How does it happen? So that's really how we end up shaping the play, and its great virtue is the fact that it is a fun piece. And I think that for me coincided with something else. For many, many years, of course, since coming to this country, race has been a kind of major, not just cloud, but it's part of the air one breathes. And for many years I've been thinking, how do I make a comedy out of racism? I want to have kind of fun about racism. And it seems to me that Hanif has provided me with that kind of a project. So that's really what we're now going to embark on. And it'll be a co-production with the National Theatre, and we open at the National on the 21st of July. And then it'll stay in rep till the 7th or 8th of October, and then go off on tour around the country.